It looks like the rest of the department heads, or several of them, are on virtual there.
All right. Thanks, Julie, very much. Anything else that I need to know from you? No.
No, sir, there is not.
Thank you. I'd like to call this July 7, 2020 meeting of the Justice Committee to order. I will confirm what Ms. Morlock just said, and as we can plainly see from all the tiles, we have everyone on the committee in attendance. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes of two meetings, the May 19, 2020 special meeting and the June 2nd, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have a motion? Moved by Member Martin, seconded by Member Bloomfield. Any questions, comments, or discussion about approval of those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? Thanks. Those minutes are approved. Ms. Rodriguez, do we have any appearances by members of the public?
Chairman Gordon, we do not.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We will move then directly into departmental matters. Section 4 of our agenda. 4A, Kathy Yoder, McLean County Coroner, with items for information. Good afternoon, Ms. Yoder.
Good afternoon.
In our packets, the information is presented on pages 4 through 6. Is there anything in that information, first of all, that you would care to highlight or call to our further attention?
Not today.
All right. Members of the committee, are there any questions that you have for Ms. Yoder about that information? Hearing none. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it a lot.
Okay, have a
Thank you, you too. Item 4B is Mr. Don Knapp, McLean County State's Attorney. Mr. Knapp, glad to see you.
Oh, glad to be seen. I have nothing but my regular report. You will notice that there's a critical hiring request from the State's Attorney's Office that Ms. Woods has resigned, and so I'd like to replace our first civil assistant. Beyond that, I noticed some of you will probably know some expenditures from asset forfeiture funds, and again, that's a cumulative year running total. I think I explained last month to the committee that we bought some laptops for our people to work remotely when COVID hit. We've also updated through the asset forfeiture fund some technology in a makeshift courtroom so we can have social distancing for a jury and courtroom participants. We're really only allowed or able to use two of the biggest rooms, one big courtroom and the jury assembly room in the courthouse. So rather than updating that with property tax dollars, we used asset forfeiture funds that once we don't have to, then once we can get back to normal and use the technology that's in the courtrooms, we'll just roll that into the State's Attorney's Office for training and other matters. But that's the expense from the asset forfeiture funds. Beyond that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that, Mr. Knapp. The critical hire request will be presented formally to us as part of Ms. Rodriguez's report, as you know. Are there any questions for Mr. Knapp? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate it. Moving on now to item 4C, Mike Donovan, Director of Court Services. Mr. Donovan, your report is found on pages 9 through 14 in our packet. Good afternoon. Anything you would care to call our attention to beyond what we've already seen?
Good afternoon. No, there's nothing additional that I have, sir.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Donovan about the report? All right. Very good. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks much.
Next, I want to turn to Mr. Everhart, the Clerk of the Circuit Court, who brings one item for action. Item D1A, request approval of a statement of work and quotation/order form with Caliber Public Safety for enhancements to the EJS system, found on pages 15 through 22 in our packet. And we'll begin by entertaining a motion. Moved by member Soldner, seconded by Ms. Bloomfield. Mr. Everhart, would you care to summarize that proposal, which you did in brief in print, but just to have it on the spoken record as well?
Sure, I'd be glad to. We are moving toward e-filing of criminal and juvenile cases. Given the limitations of our current case management system not being integrated with e-justice, we have to make some changes to what we've been doing in civil filing to ensure that our databases do not become duplicating information on parties and defendants and so forth. I can answer any questions.
Okay. That summary represents very well what you said on the first page of your report to the committee. Are there any questions about this for Mr. Everhart? I did have one comment that I wanted to at least point out, an item that I wanted to point out. You indicated that this is going to reduce duplication of information, and that is all to the good. But this is still a situation where Aegis and EFM are not integrated. Is that still correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so has the gap narrowed any further? I know that there was a considerable gap at one point, and my understanding, at least my recollection, is that there had been some narrowing of the two systems, narrowing of the gap between the two systems. Is that an accurate understanding?
No, sir. These systems do not talk. Data, when my staff accept a filing, that data is dumped into a compressed XML file. And then the server goes out and picks that up, looks for specific information, and then incorporates the documents into Aegis as well as the parties. But the two systems do not communicate back and forth. They never have.
One could always hope, which is why I asked the question.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. The total cost for this is just over $5,100. Is that right?
5,130 as quoted.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback on that, and I guess I'm glad that my understanding is accurate. Although I'm sorry, that's my understanding. Are there any other questions from other members of the committee for Mr. Everhart related to this proposal? Hearing none, the chair will vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have we have monthly statistical reports in our packet from your office on pages 23 through 31. As I usually do, I'll ask you if there's any particular information you want to call to our attention. And if so, please do. Otherwise, I'll ask for questions from members of the committee.
There is not.
Okay. Are there questions for Mr. Everhart on the statistical report for this month? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Everhart. Hope you and yours are well, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Have a good
Okay.
evening.
You too. We turn now to Ms. Barnes, the public defender, whose caseload report for this month is found on pages 32 through 34 in our packet. Ms. Barnes, good afternoon. Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can. Now, thank you. Glad you're there.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, I'm here. Hope everyone stays well.
And you too. The caseload report from your office is found in our packets on pages 32 through 34. Any particular information that you would like to highlight?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions for Ms. Barnes? Very good. Thank you kindly. You be well
Thank you
and
very much.
take good care.
Could I add something very briefly here?
Absolutely.
About a week and a half ago, I sent my chief judge in the criminal division, as well as the chief judge of the circuit, an email commending McLean County on how we had 0 COVID cases in our McLean County jail. And in my message to them, I was also reiterating and hoping that we could continue along the line of keeping everyone out of the jail, making sure that we stayed the periodic imprisonments, because there's no need for us to rush back into things, and they have agreed to do so. So, and that's with the collaboration with the sheriff and with Don Knapp as well. So hopefully we continue to keep COVID out of our McLean County jail.
Thank you for that information. Glad to know it.
Yes, yes.
We very much share the hope.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome now Molly Evans, Director of the Children's Advocacy Center, who brings 2 items for action. Item F1A, request approval of an agreement between Sharon Klingman and the Children's Advocacy Center. And I'll entertain a motion to that effect. Moved by Member Schaefer, seconded by Member Bloomfield. Ms. Evans, it appears to me at least to be a pretty straightforward proposal. Is there anything that you would care to indicate about it that doesn't stand pretty obvious, pretty evident from just reading it?
No, I don't think so. This is Sharon's, I think, 17th year with the Children's Advocacy Center as a contract therapist. So her position is covered 100% through a fund through the Department of Children and Family Services. So.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Evans about the contract between the CAC and Ms. Klingman? If we are ready to vote, all those in favor of recommending approval of this agreement, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? That has been approved. Item F1B, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2020 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the CAC, found on pages 38 and 39 in our packet. And is there a motion? Moved by Member Robustelli, seconded by Member Wendt. Any questions for Ms. Evans on this proposal? Ms. Evans took this in the reverse order of what I usually do. Would you care to indicate anything in particular about it that isn't evident from what's in our information?
No, I think it was explained in the memo that I drafted for you guys. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. I'll come back to the questions if there are any. Hearing none. All those in favor of recommending approval of this emergency appropriation ordinance, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? Very good. Thank you. Items for information from the Children's Advocacy Center found on pages 40 through 43. Anything in the statistical information that you would care to call to our attention?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Any questions on that information for Ms. Evans? Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it, and hope you're well and that things are going well.
Thank you, and I hope you all have a great evening. Thanks.
Thank you. You too. I'd like to invite now Sheriff Sandage, item 4G and 4G1A, an action item. Request approval of an intergovernmental agreement by and between the County of McLean, the McLean County Sheriff, and the Bloomington-Normal Airport Authority, pages 44 through 46 in our packet. Is there a motion? Moved by Member Wendt, seconded by Member Robustelli. Sheriff, would you care to briefly summarize what that agreement is designed to accomplish?
This is just a 3-year continuation of the agreement. We've had since I believe 2005, Central Illinois Regional Airport. It funds 2 deputies to work 80 hours a week out at the airport. There at the TSA checkpoint.
Since it is a continuation, is there any significant change from what has been in place before?
No, there is not.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from members of the committee for Sheriff Sandage about this proposed agreement? Hearing none. The chair will vote. All those in favor of approving this intergovernmental agreement, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Member Martin, the video may have been delayed on my screen. Was that a vote yes or no? Again, you could do thumbs up. Thank you. Even the thumbs up might have been slightly delayed, but that might be just my screen. I believe we had all members of the committee voting in favor. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sheriff, your monthly statistical report on pages 47 through 50. Is there anything there that you would care to highlight?
Yes. In our numbers, the issue we're running into is the state of Illinois Department of Corrections is not taking our inmates that have been sentenced to the Department of Corrections. This started over 100 days ago. The Illinois Sheriff's Association has tried to negotiate with Illinois Department of Corrections to get a fair rate that they will pay us for more or less housing their inmates now, because they're technically no longer ours. To date, if we just charged a very minimum $50 a day, the state of Illinois would owe us about $57,000 for housing their inmates. However, they are refusing to negotiate a rate with us. So that's tied up in litigation right now, but that's 33 inmates housed in our jail that should be in the Illinois Department of Corrections that we're having to take care of right now.
And those numbers are represented in, those numbers are included in the overall count that we see in your report to us this month.
That is correct.
Yeah, so 33 is that's not an insignificant portion.
No, I think if you at least today's census count, if we took away 33, I think we'd be down to 188 inmates in custody today without the 33.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Sheriff Sandage on this or any other item in his statistical report? Member Schaefer, go ahead.
I'd like to ask a question about that. Do they have a date when they're going to, I know I've read about this, previously, and do they have a date that they're going to start taking the inmates?
They do not. They have refused to even give us any guidelines as to what things we can do to speed the process as far as COVID testing, isolation, anything like that to get inmates there. They won't even let us know what they expect from us.
Member Solder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is, I assume that your organization is talking to our area legislators. Has it gotten that far yet, or is this relatively new?
We have through the Sheriff's Association. We've spoke to many legislative members.
Okay. It looks like it may be something we may need to reach out to also as members. Thanks.
Member Bloomfield, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Gordon. Thank you, Sheriff Sandage and your entire department for really courageously working nonstop at keeping us safe and responding to all the critical issues that the county is facing daily. So I'm sure that there is a lot coming at you now from all directions. Could you share what your department is experiencing, maybe in terms of rhetoric, and how is your department approaching that?
It's been extremely busy the last few weeks, of course, with the protests we had. It was kind of disheartening to see local officers vilified for something that happened in Minneapolis. I couldn't be prouder of our staff, the way they handled some of the protests and dealing with the people. Of course, we fully support peaceful protest. What we didn't support was some of the looting that went on. And to add insult to injury with that, we had on June 19th and June 20th, between Black Lives Matter and the Chicago Community Bond Fund, they come down and bonded out 13 individuals from our jail. 10 of them were looters. In that 13, there was one was in custody for selling crack cocaine, one for several counts of theft, obstructing justice, aggravated fleeing the police. That person was bonded out. They have failed to appear 7 times previously in court. Another person that was bonded out was in here on 7 counts of possession of a controlled substance, 2 counts of resisting a peace officer, 1 count of obstructing justice, and had a prior robbery conviction. They have failed to appear in court 12 times previously. Like I said, there was 10 looters. Of those, 1 failed to appear in court after being released. He was the driver of a vehicle that, when they were trying to flee a business they looted, attempted to hit a Bloomington police officer that was on foot. Like I said, that person failed to appear in court after they were released, and is also on bond for criminal trespass to residents in which he threatened to kill the victim. Another gentleman that was bonded out, a looter, was only out for 3 days and called in a fake hostage incident to the Bloomington Police Department, causing them to respond to an address, order the residents of the address out at gunpoint. Turns out it was a false incident. So that person was picked back up, arrested with false alarm to 911, which is a class 4 felony. So it's kind of disheartening. A lot of good police work went into arresting these people who were intent on damaging businesses in our community and stealing from them. To see 2 groups come together, post $87,705 in cash to bond these people out at a time where, honestly, I'd love to see that money go towards social service agencies, boys and girls clubs, something like that, something that would do some real good in this community. But we will continue doing what we do every day. We have found we do have a large amount of support in the community, which we're thankful for. And we'll just keep continuing on. Was there a second part of your question? Did I answer your question?
You did, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Are there any other questions for Sheriff Sandage on this topic or anything else that was presented in his statistical information? That wasn't easy to listen to, Sheriff.
It's not easy to work in, George.
Nope, believe it, believe it. Any other questions for Sheriff Sandage at this time? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good evening.
You too. We move now to Ms. Rodriguez, County Administrator, on items H1A and B, items presented for information. Please, Ms. Rodriguez, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I will note that portion of the agenda, actually H1A, is an action item, and I am going to go ahead and proceed as such. It is request approval of the critical hire request. The rest of the portion of the county administrator's section is not an action item, but I would request that you consider request of approval of the critical hire request. That's on page 51. I can go further to explain it after motions are made.
Thank you. We've already heard about one of those. Member Wendt, was that pardon me, was that the beginning of a motion to approve? Moved by Member Wendt. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Bloomfield. Ms. Rodriguez, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. There are three separate requests for the critical personnel hiring. They are detailed in the memo. One is for the State's Attorney's Office. State's Attorney Knapp did make mention of the request to fill the Assistant State's Attorney 5 position. There is also a request from the Court Services Department for a pretrial coordinator position. And then lastly, Court Services Department, specifically the Juvenile Detention Center, is requesting to fill a detention officer position. Staff here and will answer questions should the membership have them about any of these positions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Rodriguez about any one of these three critical hiring requests? Want to be sure you have full opportunity. Hearing none. If we are ready to vote, the chair will vote. All those in favor of approving the critical hiring requests, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Did I miss someone who wanted to make a comment? Thought I might have. Okay. If I did not, all the better. Last item from Ms. Rodriguez is an information item having to do with positions filled between late May and late June. Anything you would care to highlight on that, Ms. Rodriguez?
Only notable is that there are 4 positions held within that are directly related to this oversight committee. The first 4 listed on the chart, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Rodriguez? Thank you very much. Is there any other business or communication to come before this committee, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Chairman, I interrupted you. I do have one item just to share for information, an update to the work that a multidisciplinary team of professionals and a county board member participated in relative to our work on what we affectionately call the Aegis system. I know Mr. Everhart brought forth an action item under his operations relative to Aegis. This is slightly different. So as quick sort of summary of recollection, the team that I'm referencing brought forth the company called MTG, the consultants, and they have been working with us for a while this year, putting together some recommendations after doing several interviews with our stakeholders and with our staff regarding what might be our next steps to either build a brand new Aegis from scratch, purchase one off the shelf, or try to mix and mingle those two ideas. And the individual, Robert Kalin, who represents MTG Consulting, came to executive committee recently and presented some of his findings. And the conclusion of staff at that time was that the presentation, although thorough, although Mr. Kalin did exactly what we hired him to do, our conclusion was that the cost of some of those options that he presented us would not be realistic at this time. And we came to you and said, we're going to regroup, and we need to look at a solution that will address some of the more priority areas of where Aegis really needs to be, I'm going to use very layman's terms, fixed. I'm not a techie, and so I'm just going to use those words. So what we're proposing now, and the conclusion of the group as a whole, was that we want to go out for a request for information, or an RFI, and MTG Consulting can assist us with that. The cost to that would not impact the general fund, and in fact, Mr. William Scanlon is here to answer any questions, but it would come out of the court automation fund for MTG to assist us in finding some of the solutions with the estimates and price that would be more congruent with our market and with exact sort of with specifics relative to what those more local, hopefully, vendors can provide us. We would be reaching out probably larger than locally, but suffice it to say, this team needs more information about how we can solve the problems in the here and now. And we know that our department heads involved in this multidisciplinary team have been absolutely patient, absolutely gracious. We're thankful to all of the stakeholders involved. We even thought for a moment that we could perhaps do the RFI ourselves. I did some research. It would take quite a bit of data gathering on our part to present to the respective vendors. And I personally don't have that expertise to know whether or not I would be putting out all of the information that would bring forth the answers that we need to go forward. In a nutshell, the amount of money that we would spend through the court automation fund is not at a threshold with which we would have to ask any of the committees for permission. So at this time, Chairman Gordon, and to the membership, we are just giving you the update we promised. We did regroup. We need to move forward and take some action to alleviate the issues that need to be fixed with Aegis. And this is a step in that direction, we feel. So Mr. Nelson is in the room, as is, I mentioned, to Mr. Scanlon. And I'll note that Ms. Schaefer, Member Schaefer, I'm sorry, participates in those meetings as well. So any questions or concerns, we are happy to discuss that with you at this time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee members for Ms. Rodriguez about this information just reported? I did have one question, and that had to do with the timeline. Do we have any idea of what the what that looks like moving forward with a possible RFI?
I think that the sooner we put it out, it's my understanding that it would take about 90 days total to get the answers that we need. And so we're hoping to move forward as soon as possible in commencing that request for information.
Thank you. Other questions at this time from any member? Hearing none. Thank you for that. The information is helpful, and we'll be looking forward to hearing what comes of it, hopefully sooner rather than later, while all these other things are also going on. Is there anything else that you would care to bring to our attention at this time?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have other business or communication to bring before the committee at this time? Hearing none, we turn our attention to paying the bills. Ms. Rodriguez, am I correct that there were no transfers this month? I don't think I saw any.
You are correct, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So let's pay. We have to pay the bills. The bills have been reviewed by County Auditor Michelle Anderson. She has certified that everything is as it should be. Everything is in compliance, fully documented, and Auditor Anderson recommends payment of the bills. There is no pending total. The prepaid and fund totals therefore are identical in the amount of $397,834.41. Is there a motion to approve the bills? Moved by member Robustelli, seconded by member Markey. Questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you very much. Bills are recommended moving forward. There's no other business to come before the committee, so this meeting is adjourned with my thanks.